So before I start this video, I just want to quickly address the fact that my hair is a very strange colour right now. It looks even worse on camera, quite honestly, but I tried to dye my hair peach to match my Animal Crossing character, and this is what we got. So yeah, we're gonna roll with it. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel if you're new around here. So for today's video, I am going to be talking about something that I've wanted to talk about on this channel for the longest time, and obviously I've mentioned it a lot, like it's not really a surprise to any of you guys what I'm going to be talking about today. But I had quite a lot of new subscribers recently, so if you are new, hi, welcome, thanks for subscribing. And I thought today was the perfect time to finally talk about, in detail, my job at Walt Disney World, because obviously I've vlogged the whole thing, I have spoken about different elements of working there, but I felt like it was finally time to actually sit down and tell you about the whole summer in full and the whole experience I had, because I've kind of wanted to do this for a long time, but when I first came back off the programme I felt pretty negative about the whole thing. I think mainly because it quite frankly didn't feel real. I really disassociated myself with the whole summer, and it took me a long time to actually be able to reminisce over it properly, and I feel like finally I'm at that point, so I'm going to talk about it in full, all the good, all the bad, and just, yeah, let's start from the beginning, shall we? I also thought, since right now the parks are closed and unfortunately a lot of people have lost their jobs and future programmes have been kind of postponed, I thought now might be a good time to kind of reminisce over the programme and kind of share it with you guys. So yeah, for those of you who don't know, if you are new, I did the cultural exchange program in 2019. It was a summer program. It's basically an international college program. I refer to it a lot online as the DCP just because that's what everyone kind of knows it as, but its official title is the cultural exchange program. I applied through a company called Yummy Jobs, who are based here in the UK. I've done a ton of videos all about the process of applying with them and actually getting the job, so I will link the playlist to that down below because that might be useful to some of you guys. And yeah, it is basically a 3-month summer program. My role was quick service food and beverage. I'm actually planning on doing a whole kind of Q&A on quick service, so that will be coming in the next couple of weeks. I have actually got the questions for that. You guys very kindly left me some questions a very long time ago now, when I was going to film this video the first time around, but I kind of changed the idea for it. So yeah, I'm going to do a separate quick service Q&A coming in the next couple of weeks, so make sure you keep your eye out for that. But yeah, so I was quick service, and yeah, this is my experience. So I lived in Vista Way in a 2-bedroom, 4-person apartment. By the way, I've got some notes like down here on my phone, so if I keep looking there, that's why. Just because I can't remember everything, and honestly I'm having like major brain fog today. So it was a semi-refurbed apartment at the time. I think from a story that I'd heard from someone who lived in Vista, there'd actually been a fire in our apartment like a few months before we moved in, so like half of it was renovated and half of it wasn't, just because it wasn't affected. So mine and Ellie's room actually I think had been renovated, but Lily and Tilly's room I don't think had, so yeah, it was kind of half and half, but generally speaking it was pretty nice. Like it was all you needed, considering you were pretty much there to just sleep, and that was it. So yeah, as I mentioned, I lived with 4 girls. We were all British CPs. We all kind of linked up, so we knew who we were going to be living with, which I really liked because I was very scared about who I'd be sharing a room with, and I didn't like the idea of not knowing them before I moved in, even though we didn't spend much time there, but generally like I just wanted to feel comfortable, so I'm glad that we managed to link up. We were all super good friends and we all get on really well. We were definitely quite messy in our apartment. It was never clean. We realised near the end that we had really neglected the apartment and it got quite bad, but I mean, there are more exciting, important things going on that summer, so it was kind of our lowest priority, if I'm honest. But yeah, we weren't the cleanest, but we did all get on really well, which was really nice. So check-in day of Disney housing, for those of you who don't know, consisted of collecting like a big information pack, and you have to get your housing ID photo taken. I remember this day being so hot because obviously we'd only just arrived in Orlando like 3 days previous to this, so I wasn't used to like the heat yet. I do quite like the heat, so I wasn't like bothering me, but I was definitely very hot. I remember my housing ID photo being so shiny and I looked so sweaty and gross, because I tried to make an effort of my appearance for my photo and it just looked dreadful. Ironically, that day was probably one of the rainiest days we saw throughout the whole summer. So we moved into our apartment, we dragged our suitcases all the way to our apartment. We were in apartment 7, so it was quite far away from the housing centre, or where you went to go and collect like your program information. So we had to walk quite a long way with our really heavy suitcases. A wheel on my suitcase actually broke, so I was just dragging it along the floor. That was really stressful, I'm not gonna lie, that was not a fun morning. So we went in and we kind of dumped all our stuff, and we decided that instead of unpacking straight away, we'd go to Walmart first and do the big infamous Walmart shop that every cast member does before their program starts. So we had to go to Walmart for things like bedding, food, kitchen equipment, literally everything you could possibly imagine we needed for this apartment and to live for the next 3 months. So we took a Lyft there. Lyft is basically the equivalent of Uber, it's just another version. I mentioned Lyft in a video before and a few people got confused because they thought that I meant that I was getting a lift off of someone. No, it's basically Uber, but it's just called Lyft. In my opinion, in Orlando, and this goes to anyone who's going to be visiting on vacation, definitely recommend Lyft over Uber. It's slightly cheaper and there tend to be more drivers around, so you tend to get where you need to be a lot quicker than Uber. So yeah, we got a Lyft to Walmart. As we arrived at Walmart, it started raining and we were like, okay, fine, no worries, we're going to be inside for probably like hours, so it'll be fine. So we did our massive Walmart shop. We could not find anything in this store. It was not fun. Like, we were just walking down the aisle seeing other CPs looking just as bewildered as we were. We couldn't find anything. Obviously in America a lot of the food is different, a lot of the brands are very different, so trying to find kind of our regular everyday essentials was actually really hard. But eventually we managed to get there. We got our bedding, toilet roll, food, like it was crazy, but we did it. And then as we were leaving we decided to order our Lyft and then get a Subway, because they had a Subway in the Walmart, for lunch, because we were not going to have any time to make any lunch that day. We were also exhausted by this point because we'd been awake for quite a long time. We had to get to housing quite early in the morning so we could check in. So we got in our Lyft. It was again still pouring with rain, and when we got back to our housing complex, basically for those of you who don't know, Lyft and Uber drivers are not allowed to take you to your apartment. They have to drop you off at like a little like car parking unloading area, which obviously was completely understandable, but it was super annoying because it was pouring down with rain. So we asked one of the security guards if it would be okay for the Lyft driver to take us to our apartment, because we had loads of shopping. All the shopping was in like paper bags, or like really thin bags as well, so we knew they were going to break the minute we stepped outside, and they wouldn't let us, so we had to unload everything onto the floor. Luckily Disney housing had these things that are like little trolleys, and you can go and collect one from security, and then we'd put all our stuff in them. We had to do like maybe 3 or 4 trips with those, because we genuinely had so much stuff between us. We got it back into housing, and by the time we got everything up the stairs and into our apartment, everything was soaking wet, we were soaking wet. I did actually vlog this day. Again, I'll leave the playlist for my DCP videos down below, but this vlog was actually like 3 minutes long because it rained so much that I couldn't get my camera out, and we were all just drenched. We had to completely get changed before we did anything. We had to go and put our bedding in the tumble dryers because it was so damp. By the way, another little trick is that Disney have like washers and dryers in each building, and they're super cheap, so, and actually really good. The tumble dryers were insane. So yeah, by the time we managed to unload everything, our sugar cookies had been completely destroyed from the rain, so we ate all of them. Everything was damp. It was just not a fun day. So then that evening, after we'd unpacked and sorted everything out, we invited a few of our friends over from like the boys' apartment, obviously because the girls on boys' apartments don't mix, but we had friends in another apartment, so they all came over. And we all ordered Postmates, which took so long to arrive. I remember me and Lily ordered McDonald's and it just didn't come for like 45 minutes after it said it was going to. So yeah, we spent kind of the first few evenings kind of getting to know each other and ordering food. We kind of were treating it as a bit of a holiday, and we didn't really make any food or like cook anything for ourselves just because we weren't really used to it yet. It was all a bit strange. We ordered a lot of food, and this goes for the whole program. Most of my evening meals were ordered or bought from Wendy's. So I mean, I wasn't the healthiest, but it was fun. Yeah, we played a lot of like card games and like drinking games, but minus the alcohol because obviously most of us were under 21, so we couldn't drink. But it was just super fun. The first few days were so fun. It kind of felt a bit like freshers at uni, like when you first move into halls, and you're kind of getting to know everyone. So yeah, as I mentioned, most of the week before traditions and training started, we spent most of our time kind of just chilling out, going to the pool. We spent most of the week honestly at Universal. I think went to Universal like 3 times. We all got annual passes just because it works out cheaper. A little trick for future CPs, especially international. If you buy a Universal Power Pass annual pass, it works out as the same price as going 3 times. So as long as you go 3 times in your program, you've made your money back. I think it was about $340, which sounds like a lot of money, but considering individual park tickets are like $100, then it kind of works out pretty good. So we got our power passes and we spent the first couple of days at Universal. It was so fun. I feel like this was the week when we all made like proper lifelong friends and we all got so close, and it was just the most fun, like just getting to experience that with our friends. I'd only ever been to Universal with my family, so it was so cool to kind of experience it in a different way and like doing the things I wouldn't normally have done, and experiencing everything. The Hulk ride was finally open, so I got to go on that for the first time. It also wasn't too busy at this point because the schools hadn't closed, and Hagrid's hadn't opened yet, so the parks were super quiet. We got on everything. So that was kind of the first week before traditions, and then traditions happened. Traditions and training that whole week for me was just a massive blur because I actually had the flu. I got really ill. Again, I'm calling it freshers flu because I feel like this happens anytime you move somewhere new. When you're like living with people, you always get sick. Like I will get a cold, and it was just, yeah, it wasn't the one. I definitely had the flu. That week was definitely a struggle for me. So traditions day I felt okay. I was starting to come down with a cold, but I kind of wasn't going to let it affect my day. Traditions was super fun. Again, we were all so tired because we kind of went hard on the first week and like did so much that we exhausted ourselves. But yeah, traditions were super fun. I'm not gonna spoil traditions for anyone who hasn't done it yet. Again, I did vlog some of the day, but again, I couldn't really film too much. Then we went over to Magic Kingdom because obviously at this point we were able to get our main gate passes, which for those of you who are not at all clued up on the college program, we basically get like free entry into the park. So this was like our self-admission card that we could use. And the first thing I did when we got to Magic Kingdom was I bought my magic band so I could connect my card to it because I was so terrified of losing this card that I just bought a magic band. It was the first thing I bought with my cast discount, and it was really exciting. We then went over to Cosmic Rays to have dinner because obviously that was my location, and I'd never been there before. I didn't even know what it looked like at this point. So yeah, we went over there and had, I think I had a hot dog, which I probably ate like a third of because they are huge. And we were also running really late for the fireworks. We really wanted to watch Happily Ever After, obviously. First day traditions. So we ran over to the hub and we watched Happily Ever After and cried a lot, probably. It was a super lovely evening. We were there really late. Then we were trying to leave the park, and we realised that we actually had no idea how to get back to Disney housing. We'd actually got a lift to Magic Kingdom from our friend's apartment straight after traditions, so we actually had no idea how the buses worked at this point. So I had to ask a cast member. I was like, do you know how to get back to Disney housing? Like, I need to go home and go to sleep, but I don't know how to get home. So we ended up going a really long way back. We went to the Polynesian on the boat, and then found out that the cast buses weren't running from there that night. It was a whole thing. We ended up getting lifts home, like 2 separate Ubers because we couldn't all fit in one, and it was all a bit chaotic, but we managed to get back in the end. And then I'm pretty sure the next day was our first day of training, and I'm pretty sure I had to be up at like 7 AM. And this was when the illness really hit me. I was struggling so bad. So we had our like kind of training week where we weren't on location yet. We were just in Disney University doing classes and learning like safety stuff, and green zone, if you guys know what I'm talking about. So that kind of was a whole thing. And then before we had our like actual on the job training, we had to go get our costumes, obviously. So I remember me and my friend Hania, who I worked with, we went to go get our costumes. Had an absolute nightmare trying to find a costume for Cosmic Rays. We originally put on the Tomorrowland shorts thinking that was our costume. We went to leave with them and then got told it was wrong. Nothing fit me because obviously I'm a tiny human being. So that was really interesting. I got really overwhelmed and stressed because I was so concerned that I wasn't going to be able to work there because the costume didn't fit me properly. But in the end we managed to sort it, and they had a very limited supply of really small trousers that they'd actually had tailored for someone who used to work there who was really small, and also had to hand them back in. So I just claimed all of them. There was a 5 costume limit, so you could only have 5 of each thing. They gave me 6 pairs of trousers just because I was probably going to be the only one that needed them, because they literally fit me perfectly. So I took those home and we got our belts. That was fun. We didn't yet have our shoes at this point, and then I remember the following day we had another training session and I got my shoes. This was probably the day when I felt the most unwell. So we had to go to get our shoes from costuming, and I feel like this isn't something that I should spoil, but basically where Disney University is, the Magic Kingdom costuming is directly opposite. So we just walked over to get our shoes, and I had to queue for like 2 hours to get my shoes because they put too many groups in. It was not fun. Costuming is not a nice place to be when it's packed because it's not actually that big. But in terms of like floor space, it's huge because there's so many costumes there, but it's not actually that big. And I remember a few people looking at me and being like, Becca, are you okay? You look really not well. And I thought I was going to die, honestly. I thought I was going to pass out. I really just wanted to go to sleep, and I couldn't because I was had to go get my shoes. So the minute I got my shoes, I took them and I left. I didn't even care if they fit me properly. I just left, got on the bus, fell asleep on the bus home. These poor girls are trying to talk to me the whole way, and I just couldn't talk to them back. I got back, I flopped on the sofa in my apartment, and Lily comes in and goes, okay, we're going to go to Hollywood Studios tonight to watch Fantasmic if anyone wants to come. And I was like, do you know what, I really shouldn't come. But I didn't, this was kind of at the point when I didn't want to miss out on stuff. Like, we just arrived, I didn't want to be not going to the parks already. So I had a lemsip, had a shower, got changed, and off I went to Hollywood Studios and had a really fun night watching Fantasmic. So yeah, probably a mistake because I ended up getting ill quite a lot in the first month. I think probably because I was just so exhausted and I just didn't know when to stop. But I was not missing out on a trip to Fantasmic. So the first couple of weeks of our programme were kind of spent getting used to the buses and beating the tiredness, honestly. I was quite lucky in that I didn't ever have any early shifts, so I could have a lie in if I needed to and kind of just chill out. Which I definitely made the most of. Although the training shifts were sometimes really, really early in the morning, which were not fun. I remember my training group having to sit around some computers and like doing some like training activities, and none of us wanting to do it because we were so deliriously tired that we just chatted for hours. And our trainer at the time actually was like, okay, we might be done early, so we might be able to like let you guys leave early, which I was really all for because I just wanted to go to the parks. And we ended up not leaving early at all because we were just talking the whole time. Like, training was actually really fun, and despite being exhausted and wanting to fall asleep, it was such a funny time. But yeah, as I said, we had to try and get used to using the buses. The bus system was actually super easy once you got used to it. There's an app that CPs can have called Crystal Rider, and basically it is the bus timetables. Timetables don't make the most sense, but once you get used to it, you kind of understand what's going on and you kind of know when the buses are running. There are different buses going to various different places. I don't think I was ever late in my first few weeks. I think I was early quite a lot just because I was so worried about the buses. Although the buses, any CP will tell you that the buses are really unreliable. They catch on fire for one. I didn't experience this myself, but I've seen a lot of stories. They catch on fire, they're always late, or sometimes they get there early and then just decide to leave early, which is not fun. I think the worst thing for me is I get quite travel sick, so if I'm travelling on something I have to be sat down, otherwise I immediately feel really unwell. And often the cast buses, especially going from West Clock, which is the Magic Kingdom Castle kind of bus stop, those buses always get really super packed. So most of the time I would actually sit and just wait for a bus that wasn't busy to come by so that I could get on it and get a seat, which sometimes would be like an hour and a half. Although towards the end of my programme, if I finished at the same time as any of my friends, so like Ellie or Sophie mainly, we would just get a lift back to housing and usually go to Wendy's and stay in Wendy's till 3 AM when they closed, because Castle with Frosties and spicy nuggets are the best. If you guys are living in Vista or will be living in Vista at any point, make sure you go to Wendy's at 3 AM because it is the best time. I know a lot of cast members like to go to Waffle House, but if I'm going to be honest, I've got no idea what Waffle House is in relation to Disney housing, so can't really help you there. So generally speaking, any full day that I had off was either spent in a Disney park that I wouldn't usually go to, so basically anything that's not Magic Kingdom, because I usually went to Magic Kingdom on the days I was working because that's where I worked, that's my park, so I would spend a lot of time there if I started at like 3 or 4 in the afternoon. Although I would always make sure to try and go to Universal if I had a full day off, because generally we couldn't go to Universal and come back if we were working that day, because it just takes so long to get there and back, and by the time you're actually in. So yeah, we tried to go to Universal as much as we could as well. We didn't really stray too far from like the theme parks, we didn't really go anywhere. I know that downtown Orlando is a thing, Cowboys. I didn't go to Cowboys, I wasn't old enough, although I think I possibly could have gone, but yeah, none of my friends I worked with ever really went, so that wasn't really something that we did, although looking back I would love to do that because it looks so fun. Often we would spend time just strolling around the hotels and resorts and just looking at stuff. My favourite place in the whole of Disney World is the boardwalk. I love it with all my heart. I spent a lot of time there. I always try to make sure that I would have a self-care day or a lay-in as well. Obviously people say make the most of your program, and definitely do, but it's so important to make sure you have a lay-in every now and again and have a self-care day, do a face mask, like lay by the pool, do nothing, like it's so important. And obviously because I was vlogging, I wanted to spend some time editing as well. Generally I didn't spend too much time doing this, and actually when we got a bit busier towards the end of the program, I didn't edit at all. I just waited till I got home, but for the first couple of weeks I definitely did. Or sometimes me and Ellie would actually we'd walk down to Dunkin' Donuts and get an iced coffee, because Dunkin' Donuts iced coffee is the best, honestly. Or we'd walk to Walgreens to get some groceries. I generally strayed away from going to Walmart because I just hated it so much, so generally I would try and go to things like Dollar Tree or Walgreens because that was super close. Yeah, I think I did like 2 Walmart trips the whole time I was there just because I hated it so much. We went to Target one day, which was really fun. Okay. As you can probably see by the way I look right now, it's a different day. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. So basically I was sat down to edit this video, I got halfway through and the file corrupted, which means that the rest of the video that you guys are watching was lost. Not to fear though, I'm now going to refilm the rest of this video for the 4th time, believe it or not. I actually have already filmed this video 3 times, and each time either it just didn't seem right, or the lighting was bad, or now I've lost the footage. So I'm going to carry on from where I left off. Apologies if you can hear someone chopping down a tree. There is literally a guy chopping down a tree opposite my window, so I'm hoping he stops soon. He's been going for quite a while, so fingers crossed that stops soon. I've also tried to do my makeup and wear the same outfit as the previous clip, although my hair is slightly different, so I'm just going to tuck that behind my head so you can't really notice. But yeah, where was I? So basically I think I cut off as I was talking about what I like to do on my days off. I mentioned Target and Walmart and Universal and all the fun stuff I got up to. Just for kind of to summarize, I never really tended to stray too far from Orlando, or like too far out of like the parks and kind of Disney property, mainly because I felt safer on Disney property. Quite frankly, I didn't know where I was going. Obviously I only had Lyft or Uber to kind of help me out, unless my friend Iona was off, in which case I would drive around with her, but generally speaking I didn't like kind of stray too far on my own. I think the furthest I actually went was the Mall of Florida, or Florida Mall, whatever it's called, and then we also went to the Amway Centre to see the Jonas Brothers, which was so fun, although we did get stranded there for a lot of hours, so that kind of proves my point. So yeah, moving on to my favourite parts of the job. My favourite part of the job was for sure being able to watch Happily Ever After every night. If you guys know how obsessed I am with that freaking fireworks show, then you will understand. I would sing the whole 22-minute show with like actions for the fireworks and stuff without even having to watch it. I could always hear it from my job, but from where I worked I could always actually hear it, but I couldn't always see it. So I literally memorized the whole of Happily Ever After, and also the song afterwards, because they'd replay Happily Ever after the fireworks have ended. So that was always my favorite time. It always made me so happy, and me and my friends would dance around. It was usually pretty quiet once the fireworks are on, just because families were obviously out enjoying it rather than coming in to get food. Occasionally there would be like maybe like one member of the family coming in to grab some food, but generally that hardly ever happened, so it was usually empty and we could just have a great time. The other thing that I loved the most about my job, and this is something that I'm really proud of and I like really cherish, is the fact that I got to go down the Utilidors. The Utilidors are in the Magic Kingdom, for those of you who don't know. I feel like this is something I can finally talk about now. The first time that I ever filmed this video, I didn't mention it just because I didn't want to spoil the magic for anyone, but if you have Disney Plus and you've been watching the Imagineering story, you would have actually seen them on episode 2, which is kind of insane to me, because when I left on my final day there, I kind of just assumed that would be it and I would never ever see them with my own eyes again. Like, there aren't any photos online of it because you are not allowed to take photos down there. So I kind of just assumed that I would just have my memories. But now there's actual footage of them, and it is actually a lot of footage. Like, at first I thought it was just going to be like one bit, but they show a lot and it's crazy. So yeah, I just feel so incredibly lucky that I ever even got to walk down there. It's such an incredible place to be. Like, you wouldn't think it. It does smell like horrendously bad, like dreadful, but yeah, no, it is so nice and I'm so glad that I did get to see it. I also feel so lucky that I got to meet so many incredible cast members, whether that was down in the Utilidors or on the bus that took us to the Utilidors. Most of the time it would only ever be CPs on the cast buses, unless you were on one of the shuttle buses, then you would get kind of a whole host of different people, and there would always be so many people with stories to tell. There were even a couple of people who I met there who have been working at Disney World since the day it opened. A lot of them were very early college program participants and they've stayed. There was even one man who was from Scotland and he retired and wanted to do something from his life and moved to Orlando and became a cast member. So just anything like that is super cool. That was always something that I loved doing, whether that was in the Utilidors or on the bus. There was also a Subway in the Utilidors, which I always used to go to on my breaks, which I know was so unhealthy, but it was so good and discounted. So next up, we're actually going to talk about the job itself, and I cannot believe I'm telling you guys all of this again, because to me, I've filmed this like 3 times now, but obviously for you guys, you probably don't know much about this. So obviously I've touched on my job in the past and kind of how I didn't always have the best of times, but I'm going to actually talk about it now in detail and like everything that went on there. So my job was in Cosmic Ray Starlight Cafe, for those of you who don't know. It is the busiest quick service location in the entire world. It's located in Tomorrowland in the Magic Kingdom, and I'm going to be honest with you, when I first found out this was my location, I was a bit disappointed because I had no idea where it was, but then after a while I realised that I probably wouldn't know where half of the quick service locations in Disney World were, so it didn't really matter. I looked at the photos and the costume and was like, oh god, what have I got myself into? But yeah, it was a crazy time. So when I first arrived in the parks, and I mentioned to a cast, and I was like showing my cast ID for discount, our cast members would always ask where I was working, and I would always tell them Cosmics, and they would just look at me and be like, oh dear, good luck. And that really put me off, especially at the start, before I'd even worked there and even knew what it was like. So naturally it is very crazy and stressful and busy because it is the busiest quick service in the world. But that does mean you get to meet so many guests, so many different people. Like, it is a crazy experience working there, and I can't really describe it as anything other than crazy. It was really busy all of the time. There was never a time when it was kind of quiet. Sometimes it would be less busy than other times, but it was always, generally speaking, really busy. Although I did quite like that because it meant the time passed really fast and I got to speak to so many people, like hundreds and hundreds of guests, and it was a very sociable job, which I really liked. I lost my voice a lot because of it, but generally I absolutely loved being able to see and speak to the amount of guests that I did. And I do think I would have preferred a busy location over a quiet location anyway, so yeah, I can't really fault it in the fact it was crazy busy. The only downside to this is that it was kind of hard to make magical moments all of the time. It definitely did happen though. I definitely did manage to be able to do some magical moments, and I think it just makes the ones that you do have a lot more special, and you can kind of plan them a bit better, and there's kind of more you can do rather than like giving them out every 2 minutes. Like I know that some locations are able to. So yeah, it definitely had its pros and cons. I'm gonna be honest with you. For the most part, I didn't really enjoy working there, but looking back, I definitely enjoyed it more than some of the other jobs I've had in my life. So I would probably do it again if I had to. It hasn't put me off for life. I know I've had a lot of people message me to say they've had Cosmic Rays as their location. Don't be put off by how busy and crazy and stressful it is. Don't be put off by all the negative stuff people say about it. Yes, I didn't have the most magical summer, and I know that a lot of my other friends did, especially those in quick service. A lot of them had a better experience than me, but generally speaking, I would do it again, so I think that probably says a lot. So in terms of working hours, I actually had the least working hours of all my friends. I worked between 20 and 30 hours a week, which is like the minimum you're allowed to do. I'm pretty sure I earn about $200 to $250 a week. I want to say, that could be very wrong, but honestly I don't have any pay slips anymore, so I can't check. But yeah, I kind of didn't mind that though, because I quite liked having a lot more free time, because it did mean that I was able to have a lot more kind of downtime than everyone else did, because I feel like a lot of my friends who worked busy long shifts then spent their days off going to the parks and making the most of it, whereas I would have the morning off and actually have the morning off and like just chill out and have a lay-in, whereas they would try and go out and make the most of it. I think I was definitely the most rested out of all of my friends, even though I was still exhausted all the time. And obviously I did try and make the most of it, but I feel like I definitely had the most downtime out of everyone. I usually worked evening shifts as well, which meant that I would usually work anywhere from 3 PM till 2 AM, and I quite like this because I'm not a morning person at all. Like, I never made rope drop or anything like that, just because I really hate getting up early and I can't do it. I have a bad day if I get up early because I'm just so tired. So I didn't mind working till 2 AM because I honestly prefer being awake longer anyway. And generally on the nights when I wasn't working, we would go to bed super late as an apartment anyway, so I kind of wasn't really that bothered about it. Sometimes I would do like a 12 till 6 or 12 till 8, which I loved. They're probably my favourite shifts, but I probably only did about 4 of those, just because they're quite rare and they're given to kind of the more permanent cast members who are actually able to have a bit more choice over their shifts. Sometimes I would swap to get these though, which was quite nice, especially if I was feeling super drained and I just needed like a day off, but obviously I still had to work. My favourite shifts were definitely when I started like 5 or 6 PM, because it meant that the shift felt shorter because it was evening, but also I would have the whole day to go into the park. The little fun trick for you guys, anyone working in the Magic Kingdom, if you decide to go to Epcot before your shift, say your shift starts at 3 or 4 PM and you leave Epcot at 3 thinking that you can get the monorail and be there and be fine, I would say honestly don't. I would just get an Uber to Magic Kingdom from Epcot. The amount of times I was almost late because of the monorail is insane, and to this day the thought of being on that monorail and being late for work really stresses me out still, just because I tried it one day. I think I left about an hour before my shift started and I almost didn't make it, and the monorail actually got stuck for like 20 minutes, which again wasn't fun. So a little fun trick, don't get the monorail from Epcot to Magic Kingdom if you have a shift, because you will be late. So there are 2 different roles that I could have had as a quick service in Cosmics, and that was counter or dining room. I was on counter, although most of my British CP friends were all dining room, which I found really bizarre at first that they didn't kind of split it out more evenly. But it actually worked out okay because I made really good friends with the people on counter, all the American CPs, and there were a lot of French and Canadian as well, which I really appreciated because we all got on so well. The different positions that I could have picked up were drinks, filler, trays, stocker and greeter. Greeter was by far my favourite. That's pretty self-explanatory. You stand either outside the restaurant or kind of around the restaurant and kind of greet people, hand them menus, help them out if they get stuck with like mobile ordering. Although the one thing that I didn't like about greeter was being on Squawk Box. Not a fun time at all. I don't recommend it. It's when you have to shout out the orders through like a microphone, and for someone who gets quite socially awkward in situations like that, it just was not the one. I tried to get out of it as much as I can. I think I lied once and said that all the Squawk Boxes were broken, even though they definitely weren't. But yeah, I think greeter was definitely my favourite. Drinks basically meant that you get the soda cup and you put it under the soda machine and fill up the right drink for the right order. I liked this because I felt like I was always really on top of it compared to other people. I always made sure that I was on it with drinks, and I feel like that was probably the position that I was definitely best at. I liked this if I was feeling super tired and didn't really want to talk to guests that day, because I could kind of just chill out and not have to talk to anyone. My back was turned away from the guests, so I didn't have to speak to anyone if I didn't want to, which obviously I know isn't a great thing to have, but every now and again I would just be exhausted and not want to talk to anyone. Filler is kind of similar to drinks in that you get the food from the little hatch in the kitchen and you hand it to the guest and make sure they've got everything they need and all their order. You get kind of the stuff that goes with it, so like the straws or the little oranges or a chocolate milk or a kid's drink or something like that. You would sort all that out. And you definitely get the most interaction with guests in this position just because you're having to talk to them all the time about their order. Sometimes it would be quite nice if things were kind of running a bit slow and we could get to talk to the guests for a little bit. Often, obviously, they didn't like this because they didn't have their food, but we liked it because it meant we got to talk to them. And I had some really great conversations with people through this. So yeah, the one position that I never really did was stocker. This is purely because I'm very short and I'm not very strong, so it's things like filling up the ice bucket or stocking the coolers, and we had to stock the coolers a lot in the evenings anyway if we were cleaning, which I'll come on to later. But for me, the ice buckets were bigger than I was and probably weighed twice what I weigh, so generally speaking I would try and give this to someone else. We were allowed to swap positions if everyone kind of agreed to it. We'd have to obviously check with our coordinators and leaders and stuff, but generally if I was stocker I would always make sure that I swapped, and there was always someone who wanted to do it, which was quite nice. So I never really had a problem with that. Trays was another position that I was very kind of hit or miss with. Sometimes I really liked it, especially if I was closing, because it meant that I would do the trays, restock the soda boxes in the tunnels and then leave. Like, I wouldn't have to clean anything, whereas if I was doing it during the day I generally didn't like it that much, just because there were always trays. Like, I would do a lap of the restaurant with the cart that was always broken. Like, genuinely, this cart was never ever fixed. When the second one broke, that was probably the worst shift I'd ever had because I just didn't want to use it. Like, you can't like control it when it was broken, which wasn't fun. So yeah, I didn't like doing trays during the daytime when the restaurant was still open, but especially at closing. And if it was at like 9 PM, I'd make sure that I leave the outside trays till last, and I'd go and pick up the outside trays whilst Happily Ever After was on, so that I could use the excuse of picking up trays so that I could watch it, which if any of my coordinators or leaders are watching this, then I'm sorry that I did that and probably spent twice as long as I should out there, but what can you do? So these roles were always assigned to us like on an online system, so we never actually got to pick them ourselves, but as I mentioned, we could swap if we wanted to, which I really appreciated because there were definitely days when I wanted to swap my position. I didn't want to be doing what I was doing. Cosmetics is made up of 3 bays. Bay 1 was hardly ever opened. I think I only ever saw it open twice whilst I was working there. Bay 2 and Bay 3 are like the busiest ones. Bay 3 always closed first, and at first I used to want to be on there in the evenings because it meant I could leave earlier, but then they decided to have a new rule where they switch anyone that was on Bay 3 and had already finished to switch and help Bay 2. So I don't know, I think during the day I definitely preferred being on Bay 2 because it was super busy and fun. Whereas Bay 3 was a lot quieter and sometimes a bit more stressful just because they're not used to being as busy over there, whereas Bay 2 was always open. Mobile order was also kind of fun but kind of stressful, which I quite liked. If it got too chaotic and the whole system just broke, then that was not a fun time. But mobile ordering is basically when you order via the My Disney Experience app and you can order your food on there, and then we'll shout out when it's ready and you get a notification. I liked this because it was super easy and like people didn't have to wait around for ages. I could go grab a table and like come back, and yeah, I quite like doing mobile ordering. It was a good time until it got too chaotic, and then there were literally like 20 trays just lying around because people hadn't come up to pick their orders up yet. So obviously we always had breaks on our shifts. I would usually spend my breaks either eating the pasta and vegetables that I made, or I would go down to the subway in the tunnels. We would either have a 15-minute, 30-minute or an hour break. I can't remember like how much you have to work to get those breaks, but generally I had a half an hour break. Most of the time I had a half an hour break, which meant I would just bring in food from home, just because by the time I got down to the Musketeria, if you guys have ever been in the Utilidors, Tomorrowland is very far away from the like canteen that cast members can go to. It's at least like a good 5 minutes there, if not longer. I think we timed it once and it takes 7 minutes. So yeah, we tended not to go there if we didn't have enough time, but if we did, we'd always make the most of it. The mouse does the most insane beef and cheese empanada, and it was just my favourite thing ever. But yeah, generally I would always eat kind of like pasta and vegetables, or like rice and vegetables for my breaks. And I would always have something really sugary. Like, we were allowed to take drinks from the soda machines for our breaks, so I'd always have kind of a peach iced tea, which I became obsessed with because it had caffeine and I didn't like coffee, or like a Powerade or a Sprite or a Fanta, just anything that had loads of sugar pumped into it, I was all for. Everyone that I worked with at Cosmix was super lovely, and I do feel very lucky that I had a very lovely supportive group of CPs with me. I think we were all kind of super supportive of each other, mainly because it was so crazy and chaotic all of the time. Considering it is such a stressful environment, we were super supportive of each other, and we'd always kind of act like a little bit of a family around each other. And unfortunately I didn't end up seeing many of my friends outside of work, which looking back I definitely regret doing. I wish I'd spent more time with them, but it was super nice to have like kind of different people in work that I hung out with there than who I hung out with like in the parks. So, and we were all kind of a similar age, which really helped as well. There was one particular group who kind of got on my nerves a little bit, and they kind of weren't that nice. If you guys have ever worked in quick service in Disney World, and that's very niche, but like if you have, you may know a certain group of cast members who were hired by the company but don't actually do any work. They just clock in and then sit in the break room, which I've never really understood it, but they're just there and they really got on my nerves. And I had a lot of kind of incidents where I almost got into arguments with them. I'm not a very argumentative person, but like this happened frequently. So they kind of ruined the experience of working in Cosmix a little bit, but generally speaking everyone was super nice. The worst part of the job, minus Sunny Eclipse, because we had a very love-hate relationship, would be cleaning. I actually assumed Disney would have separate custodial staff to do this, which I don't know if that was really naive of me to think that, or if I just had very high expectations of the Disney company. But basically when we closed every evening, we would have to wipe down the counters, the registers, we'd have to clean the soda machines and the slushy machines, and let me just tell you, cleaning a slushy machine is the bane of my existence. I still to this day couldn't really tell you how to take it apart and put it back together again. But I remember one day we had cleaned the whole restaurant and it was looking great. It was quite late, I think it was like 1 AM, and we basically were pouring the slushy back into the machine so it could like kind of get frozen for the following day, and someone spilled it everywhere and it went all over the slushy machine, all over the counters that we just cleaned, all over the floor and all over us. And oh, to this day the smell is like ingrained into my brain of the disgusting like sickly sweet slushy mixture, and it was just not fun. Like it really was not fun. We had to stay and clean it, which was kind of annoying because we thought we would just be allowed to leave and kind of get someone else to do it, but we had to clean it up. And again, as I mentioned, everyone was so lovely to the point where we all kind of had a bit of a laugh over it and ended up being quite a fun shift, just because we had such a laugh over the slushy being spilt and like having to stay and clean it, and then we all went home together. So it wasn't the worst, and I think again had I been with anyone else it probably would have been quite bad. But yeah, cleaning wasn't fun. Taking out trash was not my forte because, as I mentioned, I'm not very strong, so often the trash bags would be quite full. I have to go take them down to the big kind of thing, like container they have to get rid of all the trash. I think my favourite thing was squashing cardboard in the little cardboard squashing machine. A great time. So the final thing I want to talk about is the costume, and I actually grew to love the Tomorrowland Cosmic Rays costume. The Cosmic Rays costume is slightly different to the rest of Tomorrowland's costume. They're all kind of similar but slightly different, which I didn't actually really take notice of at first, but obviously when I had to wear it I did. I had a bit of a love-hate relationship with the costume purely because I liked it in the end. It was very comfortable. It was just a pair of black trousers and like a grey shirt, like Space Ranger shirt thing, but it had like a buckle belt, and that belt always broke. I remember on my very first day in Cosmic Rays, when we had our very first day of training, I went into the bathroom and I got the belt stuck. I couldn't undo it, and it was scary because I was still brand new. I didn't know anyone at this point. I was kind of just stood in the cubicle trying to undo my belt. I had to go out of the cubicle and get someone to help me do it. I later on found out that that person who helped me undo my belt was the scariest leader of all the leaders we had. She was like the strictest one. She was the classic like one in charge who would always have the power to like tell people off or kind of get a bit scary. She was super lovely to be that day, but yeah, I'm glad that I didn't know that at the time because I would have been terrified. And yeah, generally the costume was pretty nice. It was a little bit sweaty if I had to be outside, but as I mentioned, if I was Greta, I would either be outside or inside, and I never was outside for that long to like really notice it. And actually the restaurant inside was quite cool with aircon, so it was quite nice. And yeah, I definitely could have had a worse costume. It wasn't like your classic pretty Disney costume, but I enjoyed being a Space Ranger. Okay, so I'm actually going to now pass you back over to my previous self who's going to end this video because for some reason that footage survived, but you know, what can you do? Thanks for sticking. Anyway, thank you so much for watching this video, you guys. I really hope you enjoy it. I'm so glad I was finally able to sit down and talk about my whole experience with you guys. I wanted to do this for so long. Make sure to subscribe if you're not already for my quick service Q&A, and I've got loads of other content coming your way as well. Let me know in the comments below if you've ever done a Disney program, what year you did it and what role you were, or if you do have one coming up. I know it's kind of hard right now because of the whole pandemic situation. People don't know if their programs are going ahead or if they've been cancelled. But yeah, let me know if you were to work in Disney World, what role you would have. If you've watched this far, comment down below what role you would have in Disney World if you could pick any. And yeah, I'll see you all again very soon with another video.